Most of the markets were closed. All that stayed active through the Albuquerque night were 7-Elevens, K-stores, and the occasional gas station. He wandered over to the Shamrock station where Jean worked as a cashier, and they chatted for a while. That was all they could do, since it was forbidden for her to unlock the office door for anyone after 8 o'clock. That wouldn't have stopped Jean. She went her own way just like Seeth. But with all the people coming and going, the tourists trickling steadily off I-40, she didn't want to take the risk, no matter how hard he pleaded. She needed the job. So he yelled at her and she yelled back, and with that acrimonious farewell ringing in his ears, he had continued on his way. There was always something doing around the University of New Mexico. Several pizza parlors and a club or two never closed, but he didn't have money to spare for pizza, and he sure as hell wasn't interested in crashing any of the clubs. They played nothing but homogenized pap, and their squeaky clean patrons wore cotton shirts and shoes with laces. Nor did they offer the opportunity to pick up girls. Sorority sisters and pretty things deep into husband searching tended to view him as something that had crawled up from beneath the sewers or invaded from another planet. He knew the truth of it, of course. What they both despised and envied was his individuality, his readiness to express himself freely and openly when they were cramped and constrained by society. Screw him. He didn't need that kind of company. He turned a corner. A police cruiser was coming down the boulevard toward him. It slowed. Though he kept his gaze on the street ahead, he could sense the cop's eyes following him. He kept his hands outside his pockets where they could be seen. After a few minutes, the patrol car accelerated slightly and left him in its wake. The Albuquerque cops were what you could call half-cool. They let you know they were around and what your place was, and that they could find you if they needed to. But as a rule, they weren't into heavy-duty hassling. Albuquerque was just big enough, just cosmopolitan enough to barely tolerate Seeth and his friends. Though the cops would come down on you hard and fast if you so much as parked 10 minutes too long in a 30-minute zone. Where he really belonged was L.A. or New York, not out here in the vast, stinking, conservative American heartland. Trouble was you couldn't pick up the bucks for relocation and cross-country airfare doing odd jobs at minimum wage. The good low-paying jobs were all taken by Hispanics. Not that Seeth blamed them. Most of them had wives and kids and dreams that would never be fulfilled. You could always try hitching, but he'd probably end up run down by some berserk redneck trucker. Bus fare was as bad as airfare. He was stuck. He passed the big Diamonds department store and eyed the huge plate glass windows longingly. The police cruiser might still be hanging around. It was a neat old building, rich with granite and concrete decoration. They'd probably replace it with a parking lot sometime next year. Checking himself out in the reflective window, he had to admit, as would anyone with an eye for fashion, that he looked his usual slick self. Black jacket, dripping zippers, a few tastefully slung chromed chains, and the black and white striped pants he'd had to get by mail order since he didn't find stuff like that on the rack at Sears, neatly set off by the lightning bolt earring dangling from his left earlobe. Above that was the Maltese cross ear bracelet, carefully shaved skin, and his 3-inch mohawk haircut. A little traditional, but a lot easier to maintain than those damn spikes. Running fingers across the bald left side of his skull, he felt the beginnings of bristle. Time to shave again, he told himself. For all that, looking pretty good. A little black eye makeup and complimentary lipstick would have really sharpened him up, but he didn't see the point in going all out just for a casual nocturnal stroll. The parallel red stripes he had painted on his neck and that ran from beneath his right ear to under his jacket collar were an original touch of his own. They were purely symbolic. He could have made them look a lot more like real blood, but then he would have had to deal with questions from the straights on the street. He considered walking over to the university anyway. What stopped him was the possibility of encountering a couple of all-American frat types, jocks who'd enjoy nothing more than beating the crap out of a wayward punk. Though Seeth could take care of himself, he was only 5'6" and barely into 3 figures poundage-wise. There was the blade he concealed in his special pants leg pocket. But if he actually had to stick somebody, he'd be as bad off as if he'd just let himself get beaten up. The cops weren't